Imagine a world where celebrity status isn't parked in some temperature-controlled showroom never to see sunlight again, where $70 million race cars still turn laps at vintage events and 1930s engineering masterpieces get driven on public roads. These aren't investments, they're obsessions with actual racing heritage, actual podium finishes, and actual engine oil under the fingernails. Stay until the end, because the #1 spot isn't just one car. It's an entire collection that rivals major museums, with a single vehicle worth more than some small countries' annual budgets. Let's start with number 10 on our list. Aaron Paul doesn't just play characters who live on the edge. He drives like it too. His 1965 Shelby Cobra 427, valued somewhere between $1 and $3 million, is one of the most legendary American race cars ever built. Under that long hood sits a Ford 427 cubic inch V8, producing around 425 horsepower. In a car weighing just over 2,300 pounds, that translates to 0 to 60 in roughly 4.2 seconds. In 1965, Carroll Shelby built these machines specifically to embarrass European sports cars on the track, and they did exactly that. Paul bought his after starring in Need for Speed, where he spent months training on actual racetracks. He didn't just want a collector piece, he wanted something that would terrify him every time he turned the key. But if you think one Cobra is impressive, wait until you see who else has one in their garage. Number 9 belongs to Tim Allen, who grew up in Detroit, surrounded by American muscle. His 1965 Shelby Cobra sits alongside a 1933 Ford Roadster, a 1968 Camaro 427 Copo, and a 1946 Ford that actually appeared on Home Improvement. Allen doesn't just collect these cars, he restores them. The 1933 Ford Roadster was rebuilt frame-up on television, and his Herbie-inspired 1963 Volkswagen Beetle hides a V8 engine that absolutely does not belong there. The Cobra in his collection produces similar numbers to Paul's, roughly 425 horsepower from that same 427 big block. But Allen's approach is different. He treats these machines like tools, not trophies. And speaking of people who actually use their vintage race cars, number 8 takes things to a professional level. Patrick Dempsey isn't just McDreamy. He's a legitimate professional racing driver who owns Dempsey Racing and has competed at Le Mans. His first love, though, was a 1963 Porsche 356 that he bought for just $10,000. That little AIR-cooled flat 4 produces only about 95 horsepower, but Dempsey drove it daily for 15 years. The 356 was Porsche's first production model, the car that established everything the brand would become. His collection has since expanded to include a 1972 Jaguar E-Type, a 1954 Jaguar XK120, and multiple Porsche 911 variants, but he still owns that original 356. Some relationships you just don't walk away from. Now, if Dempsey represents controlled passion, number 7 represents barely controlled chaos. Rowan Atkinson, the man behind Mr. Bean, has crashed more expensive cars than most people will ever sit in. He famously bought a McLaren F1 in 1997 for £640,000, crashed it twice on public roads, then sold it in 2015 for £8 million. Not a bad return on investment, even with the repair bills. But his vintage collection is where things get interesting. He owns a rare 1939 BMW 328, one of the most successful pre-war racing cars ever built. He also races a 1964 Ford Falcon Sprint at Goodwood, where his co-driver once was Sir Stirling Moss himself. The BMW 328 features a 2.0-litre inline-six producing about 80 horsepower. Doesn't sound like much until you realize the whole car weighs under 1,800 pounds. That power-to-weight ratio embarrassed much larger machines throughout the late 1930s. But Atkinson doesn't just display these cars, he races them hard. Number 6 brings us to someone who knows a thing or two about going fast. Lewis Hamilton, 7-time Formula One world champion, has a collection that includes a 1966 Shelby Cobra 427. When you drive 200 miles per hour cars for a living, you develop an appreciation for machines that did the same thing 60 years ago, with none of the safety equipment. Hamilton's Cobra pumps out roughly 485 horsepower and handles like a mechanical bull that happens to have wheels. He also owns a 1967 Ford Mustang Shelby GT 500, proving that even European racing royalty can appreciate American muscle when it's done right. Now, number 5 takes us to someone whose relationship with their car became an actual documentary. Eric Bana has owned his 1974 Ford Falcon XB since before he was famous. He named it the Beast and wanted one ever since watching the 1977 Bathurst 1000 as a child. In 2007, Bana crashed the Beast during a race, nearly destroying decades of memories and mechanical work. The documentary Love the Beast chronicles his relationship with this car and the painful decision to rebuild after the crash. The Falcon XB runs a heavily modified V8, producing well over 500 horsepower. But the car's value isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in history, in memories, in the kind of connection that only comes from growing up with something. Speaking of connections, number 4 belongs to someone who turned car collecting into a second career. Jerry Seinfeld's Porsche collection is legendary, but one car stands above the rest. His 1959 Porsche 718 RSK was one of only 34 ever built. He bought it from racing legend Roger Penske, who actually won races in it. The RSK weighs just 1,260 pounds and produces about 142 horsepower from its flat 4 engine. That does not sound impressive until you realize this car dominated Le Mans and set speed records against machines with twice the displacement. When Seinfeld auctioned 16 Porsches in 2016, the 718 RSK sold for $2.86 million. His remaining collection still includes a Porsche 997K driven by Steve McQueen in Le Mans, valued around $25 million. But now, we enter territory where the numbers get genuinely absurd. Number 3 is Jay Leno's 1994 McLaren F1. Only 64 road cars were ever built, and Leno's was the first imported to the United States. He bought it from Dutch racing driver Ben Pon Jr. and has owned it ever since. The F1's BMW V12 produces 627 horsepower and held the Guinness World Record for fastest production car at 240.1 miles per hour. That record stood for over a decade. The central driving position puts you in the exact middle of the car, like a fighter jet on wheels. Current valuations put McLaren F1S between $17 and $20 million. And unlike many collectors, Leno actually drives his regularly. Number 2 is also from Leno's garage, and it might be even more impressive. The 1934 Duesenberg Walker Coupe is the only one of its kind ever built. Custom ordered by pharmaceutical tycoon Josiah Lilly, it features aerodynamic bodywork designed by Walker that was decades ahead of its time. The straight 8 engine produces 265 horsepower and moves over 6,000 pounds of American luxury. After Lilly rejected it, the car was sold to a politician's mistress, then to a gas station owner who used it as a tow truck. Today, it's valued at approximately $20 million and represents the absolute peak of pre-war American automotive engineering. But number 1 makes even Leno's collection look modest. Ralph Lauren's automotive collection is valued somewhere north of $350 million and includes machines that define entire eras of racing history. His 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO is one of only 36 ever built. He bought it in 1985 for $300,000. Similar examples have since sold for $70 million. The 3.0-liter V12 produces around 300 horsepower, and the car won 6 races during its competition years before Lauren acquired it. Then there's his 1938 Bugatti Type 57 SC Atlantic. Only 4 were ever built, and Lauren owns one of the 3 survivors. Estimates put its value between $40 million and $150 million, making it potentially the most valuable car on Earth. He also owns a 1957 Jaguar XK-SS, one of only 16 built after a factory fire destroyed the tooling. Steve McQueen owned one. Ralph Lauren owns another. They're valued around $30 million each. His collection has been exhibited at the Louvre in Paris, which tells you everything about where automotive passion can take you when combined with extraordinary resources. So if you made it all the way to number 1, you clearly appreciate machines that combine history, performance, and obsession. Tell me in the comments, would you choose a vintage Porsche like Seinfeld, a Duesenberg like Leno, or a Ferrari like Lauren? And if collections like these fascinate you, hit subscribe, because next we're diving into the billion-dollar private car collections you've never heard of.